Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer.
But who is he?
Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer.
And who is he?
Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer.
And what he do?
And he's gonna react to all the self-snitching.
Hi, this is Bruce Rivers. Welcome to another episode of Criminal Lawyer Reacts. I'm Bruce Rivers, board-certified criminal defense lawyer, where I actually try cases. I go to court. I don't just write passports to prison. I actually go to court and I try cases, and generally I win. Today we're reacting to the verdict and closing arguments and verdict on the Gwyneth Paltrow ski saga with Mr. Sanderson. But before we do that, let's talk about who we're sponsored by. We're sponsored by eSign.com. eSign.com is a very effective way to remotely do business. You download the app, you get 3 free signatures a month, and you can use it for anything. Let's say you just lost a major case, and now you get fired from your law firm because they realize what a piece of lawyer you are, so you can't really get out of your house because it's a very high-profile case. And so you're hunkered down and you send out your resumes, and somebody makes you an offer. Well, the only way you can sign it, because you can't go out of your house, you do eSign.com. eSign.com is an effective way to stay in your house and avoid the public, and it's an effective way to just remotely do business, to be honest with you. I use it all the time in my practice when I have a client that can't make it into the office. eSign.com. You can use it for power of attorney. You can use it for just about any other document where you need a signature. I'm very grateful to have them as our sponsor. And so make sure that you go there and figure out if you got any business you need to do it remotely, do it with eSign.com. So now I'm going to show you kind of the difference between these two sets of lawyers. They did their closing arguments, and you can tell a lot about messaging by the lawyer. You know, if I'm sitting here, you know, when I do a closing argument, I try not to. Just a second. Oh, here it is. My client, you don't do that. You don't do that at all. Why don't you do that? Because it wasn't that distracting. You heard the paper. I'm not looking in your eye. So let's just watch the beginning of the plaintiff's closing argument. Now, keep in mind, he's suing for $300,000 because she skied into him and caused all these damages. She's countersuing for $1 and attorney's fees. Now, we watched the trial, and I think we saw who was credible and who wasn't. But here's what I kind of think. The plaintiff's lawyers, I don't know if they thought this was the new Johnny Depp trial or what. They thought they were going to really take a swing at this. But in looking at their client, there's no way they should have tried this case. You know, everybody likes to use notes. I had the privilege of talking to F. Lee Bailey. I brought him in when I was the dean for the Academy of Certified Trial Lawyers in Minnesota. I brought him in to speak to our group, and he got up and he spoke for an hour and 15 minutes without a single note. And when you watch somebody do that, you're riveted. You're riveted to what they're going to say next. And you can see that they're not looking at notes. When you are flipping through notes, I mean, and if I do a closing argument and I have notes, I usually have 1, maybe 2 pages, and I have bullet points. I don't write everything out word for word. I might do that, in prep and kind of go through, practice my opening statement or closing statement. But I want contact with the jury. I want to tell a story. I want you to see me, feel me, hear my story, feel what my client is feeling, side with me, And so much get lost if I'm reading, people can tune out very, very quickly. Yeah, you wake up, I mean, I've actually had to do that before where I pounded on a desk and a juror wanted to wake up because it's boring sitting in court. I mean, let's just face it. So let's watch what this guy's got to say.
This has been a hard, long case. By the way, it's about an hour each way going to Salt Lake with traffic. So
who gives a shit how far you had to drive? If it's worth it, you wouldn't be talking about that.
That adds to it. But you've been very attentive. I've seen you taking notes and paying attention. No one nodded off. So thank you again. Now, I'll turn on my...
Now, here's the thing. Guy's overweight. He's hunched over. He's fiddling with this, fiddling with that. everybody has their assets when it comes to trial. You know, I remember when I used to teach law school, and I had this gal. She was middle-aged, you know, and she was feeling insecure. I didn't know where her anxiety was coming from, and we had a one-on-one session, and you know, after class one day, and I said, "Well, what's wrong?" She goes, "Well, I'm not that attractive, and I'm overweight," and I'm like, I said, "Wait a second." I said, "You've got a lot of assets here." I said, "First of all, look what you just did. The way you just came at me there. I mean, don't get mad at me. I didn't make you that way, but the way you just came at me was intimidating. You've got some assets. Use your personality. You know, be engaging. You don't have to pretend you're somebody else, but use your personality. You also have to know your audience. So when you sit there and you're dawdling, you know, and this happens a lot with older lawyers, because when you are doing something for so long, you get used to doing it. It's a job. They should just listen to you. You kind of have certain expectations instead of the other way around. It's a new jury every single time. New people, new facts. You need to connect with these people. How are you going to do that? You can, you know, and you can't be so arrogant as a lawyer that you know everything all the time. I learned things from my clerk that, you know, she's been with me for 20 years, my paralegal, and she'll see things with a jury that I miss. And so I always listen to what she says. But I also talk to lay people, everybody, to get ideas. I'm not saying that I don't know this guy, so I'm not saying that he is arrogant or that way, but he looks like he's doddering, kind of like his client. Are you riveted by him?
By the way, I apologize for my cold. You can't really choose when those come.
Okay. You know, the minute you stand up to that podium, you don't get another chance to make a first impression or a last impression. All right. I really don't want to listen to any more of what he's got to say, because he's already lost me, because he's got a cold, and we should really. Now let's juxtapose that with the beginning of Gwyneth Paltrow's attorney. The lawyering between these is just flipping night and day.
You can actually find today that neither were at fault. Skiing is an interesting thing. We strap sticks on our legs at the top of a very high hill and go down for fun. It's breathtaking. I've done it.
So what did he just do in that very short snippet? He gave you imagery. He gave you what this case is about. It's about skiing, not about somebody's cold, not about your drive that's an hour long. You know, I mean, that guy sounds tired. Doesn't he sound tired? He sounds just absolutely tired. But this is how the plaintiff's lawyer started out their case.
I'm Miss Paltrow's, and I'm going to just call her Gwyneth. I'm Gwyneth's lawyer. I'm her spokesman this week. So she sat there for 2 weeks and been a punching bag. We've blown through a lot of these cute little Post-it notes where she's sending me stuff. But I take it very seriously because she's comfortable in a lot of worlds. I'm not.
Right away, who is he talking about? Is he talking about his drive or his cold or doddering? No, he goes in right away talking about his client, humanizing his client, talking about how she feels and how she's been a punching bag throughout this trial.
I'm not comfortable in, but she is not comfortable in this world. It is not a nice thing for someone to throw a press conference and say, like King Kong, you knocked him out and walked away, skied away. That is not what happened. And the court has actually dismissed the idea, and that's one of your jury instructions, that this was a hit and run.
See, I mean, do you see the difference? I mean, he gets right into his argument right away, and so you're captivated, and that's how you get. Anyway, so that is just kind of a little critique on the beginning of their different styles. I mean, here's the other thing that she had to endure. They put in additional cameras, and there was one camera that was trained on Gwyneth Paltrow the entire time. How disconcerting must that be for 2 weeks And so she had to have her game face on the entire time. But let's listen in as they read the verdict.
Was Gwyneth Paltrow at fault? No. Was Gwyneth Paltrow's fault a cause of Terry Sanderson's harm?
So when you have a jury verdict form, you have a question and then the answer, yes or no. And then the next question was Gwyneth Paltrow the cause of whatever his name is, Sanderson's, the plaintiff's harm? If they answered no in the first question, you don't even have to answer the second question.
Oh, no. Skip that.
There's just no response there.
Okay.
Because they already answered no.
Was Terry Sanderson at fault? Yes. Was Terry Sanderson's fault a cause Gwyneth Paltrow's... Did Terry Sanderson's fault cause Gwyneth Paltrow's harm? Yes. Comparative fault. What percent of the fault do you assign to Terry Sanderson?
So comparative fault, let's talk about what that is. So let's say you and I get into a car accident, and let's say it's my fault, but you're like 30% at fault. The jury says, okay, so that means if they awarded you $100,000, your award would be reduced by 30% or 30, that third or whatever. And that's what they're talking about here.
100%.
So he was 100% at fault. Good idea to go to trial on this one, pal. See, here's the thing. If you're going to go to trial on something like this, you really need to read the facts of the case.
Damages. What amount fairly compensates Gwyneth Paltrow for economic damages? $1.
So if she would have sued for the cost of her trip, she probably would have gotten it.
Signed March 30th, 2023.
So there's your loser right there. Lost, full stop.
Thank you. So
this is our reaction to Gwyneth Paltrow's defense verdict. I mean, she got 100% his fault. She's not liable at all, and he's got to pay her attorney's fees. So I guarantee you he's thinking, God, I shouldn't have gone to trial. Now I owe $1 million in attorney's fees. I mean, it's going to be significant, and they did a much, much, much better job. I have been in this same position as a plaintiff's lawyer where I'm sitting there trying a case. We tried a case last August. My client was burned 40% of his body, and we had a nice team that we set up, and the defense team in that case was just so tone deaf to anything that was going on in the courtroom. And the lead lawyer was so arrogant. And at the end of the day, the jury came back and awarded my client $35 million. $35 million. The last offer before trial was 2.3. We would have taken 4, I think. I don't know. But we never got there because they wouldn't budge. And the jury awarded my client $35 million. And now they just had to put up a bond for $50 million. You have to be able to synthesize the information that's in front of you and be able to read the room, read the trial, know what's going to happen before you get there. And that's one of the things I think I'm pretty good at. And I think that Gwyneth Paltrow and her team had this case pegged from the beginning. So this has just been our reaction to the closing arguments and verdict on the Gwyneth Paltrow case. We'll see you next time here on Criminal Lawyer Reacts. Make sure you sign up for Patreon, subscribe, follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter, and listen to Percy and Matt because he is pretty awesome. We'll see you next time here on Criminal Lawyer React.
Bruce Rivers just broke down your case. He know all the charges that you about to face. You ain't coming home till 2058. That self-snitching gon' get you put away. Bruce Rivers just broke down your case. He know all the charges that you about to face. You ain't coming home till 2058. That self-snitching gon' get you put away. 23-hour lockdown, please, is that my God?